The morning sun cast long shadows across the golden fields of Kepler 442c when the first Krek ships appeared in the sky. Elder Talvin stood on the observation deck of the colony's main building and watched the dark shapes grow larger against the pale blue atmosphere. His forearms trembled as he reached for the emergency communication device that would change everything. The Vallani had built their colony on this peaceful world 3 generations ago. They chose this place because it was far from any major space routes and had rich soil perfect for growing their sacred grain. The Vallani were a gentle people who believed in harmony with nature and peaceful cooperation with all living things. They had never owned weapons beyond simple tools for farming. Elder Thalvin activated the distress beacon with shaking fingers. The message went out across space in all known galactic frequencies. He spoke in the common trade language that most species understood. This is Kepler 442c colony requesting immediate assistance. We are under attack by unknown hostile forces. We have no military capability. Please help us. We have 12,000 civilians, including 3,000 younglings. First Krek's landing craft touched down in the eastern fields. Just as Talvin finished his message, through his telescope he could see tall figures in dark armor stepping out of the ships. They carried weapons that looked like they could cut through the colony walls like paper. The elder's heart sank as he realized how hopeless their situation had become. Far across the galaxy, Scout Kim Jisoo was running routine patrol along the Outer Rim territories when her ship's communication array picked up the distress call. Jisoo had been flying solo reconnaissance missions for the Human Defense Fleet for 5 years. She was young but experienced and had a reputation for being in the right place at the right time. Her small ship Wanderer was fast and equipped with the latest long-range sensors. Jisoo listened to the desperate message from the Vallani colony and immediately changed course toward their location. She knew the coordinates put the colony about 6 hours away at maximum speed. While her engines charged for the jump to hyperspace, she sent the distress call to Admiral Park Minho, commander of the 7th Battle Group. Admiral Park was reviewing training exercises aboard his flagship Soul's Thunder when the message from Jisoo reached him. The admiral was a veteran of 23 years in the Human Defense Fleet. He had gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too many battles. But when he heard the plea from the Vallani colony, those eyes became hard as steel. The Admiral's bridge. Crew gathered around him as he played the distress message. The communication officer shook her head sadly. "Sir, that colony is way outside our patrol zone. By the time we get there, it might be too late." Park studied the star charts on the IM main screen. His battle group was conducting training exercises only 2 systems away from the Vallani colony. They could be there in less than 4 hours if they moved fast. He was about to give the order when another message came through the communication system. The transmission bore the official seal of the Galactic Peacekeeping Alliance. A tall, blue-skinned official appeared on the screen. His name was Director Veltar, and he spoke with the authority of someone used to being obeyed. "Admiral Park, we have received information that human forces are considering response to the situation at Kepler 442c. The Alliance appreciates your concern, but this matter falls under our jurisdiction." Admiral Park stood up from his command chair. He was not a tall man, but his presence filled the bridge. "Director, with respect, your response time to that colony will be at least 18 hours. Those people will be dead or enslaved by then." "Director." Veltar's expression remained calm and superior. "Admiral, your species has only recently joined galactic civilization. You lack experience in handling delicate situations like this. The beings attacking that colony are likely the Krek's empire. They are a dangerous military force that requires careful diplomatic approach. Your people's aggressive tendencies would only make the situation worse." The Admiral felt his jaw tighten. He had heard this speech before from various Alliance officials. Humans were too violent, too unpredictable, too primitive to handle important matters. They were barely tolerated members of galactic society who should stay quiet and let the civilized species handle real problems. "Director," Park said slowly, "are you ordering us not to respond to that distress call?" "I am strongly advising you to leave this matter to proper authorities. The Alliance has protocols for dealing with the Kreks. Your intervention could destabilize the entire region and cost thousands of lives. Back on Kepler 442c, Elder Thalvin watched in horror as Krex soldiers herded groups of Vallani civilians into containment fields. The aliens moved with military precision and showed no mercy to anyone who moved too slowly. Several of the colony's leaders had already been taken away for questioning. The Elder tried to contact the Galactic Alliance directly, but got only automated responses saying that his request was being processed and that help would arrive within standard response timeframes. Those timeframes could mean days or even weeks depending on Alliance bureaucracy and resource allocation. Young Vallani ran past the administration building carrying whatever belongings they could save. Parents clutched their children close as Krex patrols searched through homes and work areas. The invaders seemed to be looking for something specific, but Thalvin could not understand what they wanted from a simple farming colony. Scout Kim Jisoo arrived at the edge of the Kepler 442c system, just as the situation on the ground was getting worse. Her sensors detected over 50 Krex ships in orbit around the planet. She kept her small scout ship hidden behind an asteroid field and used passive sensors to gather intelligence about the enemy force. What she saw made her heart race with anger. The Krex were not just raiding the colony, they were setting up permanent facilities. This was a full invasion designed to turn the peaceful farming world into another industrial slave camp. Jisoo had studied reports about other worlds the Krex had conquered. The original populations were always worked to death in massive factories that produced weapons and ships for the Krex war machine. She transmitted everything she observed back to Admiral Park's fleet. Her message included detailed scans of Krex ship positions, troop movements on the surface, and evidence that this was not a simple raid but a complete takeover operation. Admiral Park received Jisoo's intelligence report just as Director Veltar was finishing another lecture about proper diplomatic channels and the importance of following alliance procedures. The Admiral looked at the images of Vallani families being forced into slave camps and made his decision. He turned to his communications officer. "Send a message to all ships in the battle group. We jump to Kepler 442c in 30 minutes. Full combat readiness." Director Veltar's image flickered with outrage. "Admiral Park, I am ordering you to stand down. Any military action you take will be considered a violation of Alliance authority." Park stood up and straightened his uniform. His voice was calm but carried the weight of absolute determination. "Director, sometimes being uncivilized has its advantages. We'll file our report after we save those people." The Admiral cut the transmission and turned to his bridge crew. Every officer was watching him with expressions of fierce loyalty. They had all heard the Vallani distress call and seen the intelligence from Scout Jisoo. They knew what needed to be done. "Helm, plot our course," Park ordered. "All ships prepare for immediate hyperspace jump. We have innocent people to save, and it's time the galaxy learned what humans do when civilized species won't act." The 7th Battle Group's 47 ships aligned in formation and disappeared into hyperspace, racing toward a small farming colony that had asked for help. Behind them, the Alliance continued to debate proper procedures while somewhere in the darkness between stars, the Krex prepared to turn another peaceful world into a factory of suffering. The space above Kepler 442c erupted in brilliant flashes of light as 47 human warships dropped out of hyperspace. Admiral Park Minho stood on the bridge of Sol's Thunder and watched his fleet spread into attack formation. Below them, the planet's surface was already scarred with Krex landing sites and the smoke of burning Vallani settlements. General Vextar commanded the Krex invasion fleet from his massive battleship Death's Edge. He was reviewing reports of successful ground operations when his sensor officer announced the arrival of the human ships. The general's reptilian features twisted into something resembling amusement as he studied the tactical display. 47 ships, Vextar said to his bridge crew. "The humans sent 47 ships against our fleet of 200. Either they are incredibly brave or incredibly stupid." His tactical officer examined the human vessels through long-range sensors. "General, their ships appear to be built for durability rather than elegance. Heavy armor plating, reinforced hulls, redundant systems. Very crude construction compared to our vessels." General Vextar had conquered 17 worlds for the Krex Empire. He knew the patterns of battle well. When civilized species fought, they followed predictable rules. Ships formed neat battle lines, exchanged fire at respectful distances, and negotiated surrender terms when casualties reached acceptable levels. It was all very orderly and efficient. "Open a channel to the human commander," Vextar ordered. "Let us see if these primitives understand their situation." Admiral Park's face appeared on the Krex general's screen. Park looked tired but determined. His uniform was simple and practical compared to the elaborate decorations worn by most galactic military leaders. When he spoke, his voice carried quiet authority. "General, I am Admiral Park of the Human Defense Fleet. You will cease all hostile operations against the Vellani colony and withdraw from this system immediately." Vextar laughed, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Admiral, you are outnumbered more than 4-1. Your primitive ships are no match for Krex military technology. I offer you one chance to retreat with honor. Leave now and we will forget this foolish gesture." Park's expression did not change. "General, you have 30 seconds to begin your withdrawal or we will remove you by force." The Krex general's amusement turned to anger. "You dare threaten the Krex Empire? Your species has been in space for barely 2 centuries. We have been conquering worlds since before your ancestors learned to make fire." 20 seconds, Park said calmly. On the surface of Kepler 442c, Elder Talvin and thousands of other Vellani prisoners watched the sky through the energy barriers of their detention camps. They could see the lights of ships moving in orbit, and hear the rumble of Krex atmospheric fighters preparing for battle. Many of the prisoners wept quietly, believing they were about to witness the destruction of their only hope for rescue. Captain Lee Daehyun commanded the assault carrier Incheon's, pride from his position on the fleet's right flank. Lee had studied every known battle involving Krex forces. The enemy was disciplined and followed standard galactic combat doctrine. They would form defensive formations, concentrate fire on the largest targets, and expect their opponents to do the same. "All squadrons, this is Captain Lee," he announced over the fleet communication system. "Remember your training. These aliens fight like they learned warfare from a textbook. We fight like we learned it from surviving Earth." Major Song Hana stood in the Marine ready room aboard Incheon's Pride and checked her assault rifle one final time. Around her, 200 human Marines prepared their equipment for what every tactical manual said was impossible: boarding actions against a superior enemy fleet. The Major had served in the defense of Luna Station and the liberation of Titan Colony. She knew what humans could accomplish when they stopped following other people's rules. "Listen up," Major Song told her Marines. "The Krex expect us to fight fair. They expect us to worry about casualties and diplomatic consequences. They expect us to behave like civilized soldiers." She smiled grimly. "Today we show them what uncivilized looks like." Commander Choi Taejin coordinated fleet movements from the tactical center of the flagship. His screen showed the Krex fleet forming a perfect defensive sphere around their command ships. It was textbook formation, designed to provide overlapping fields of fire and mutual support. Any sane commander would probe for weaknesses or try to outflank such a formation. Admiral Park was not interested in being sane. "All ships execute pattern Delta," Park commanded. The human fleet scattered in all directions like a school of fish avoiding a predator. But instead of fleeing, each group of ships began moving toward different points in the Krex formation. They used the planet's moon for cover, hid behind asteroid debris, and approached from angles that forced the enemy to split their attention. General Vextar watched in confusion as the human ships refused to form proper battle lines. "What are they doing? This is not how space combat works." His sensor officer's voice was uncertain. "Sir, they appear to be everywhere at once. I cannot predict their attack vectors." The first human strike came from behind the planet's largest moon. 5 destroyers emerged at full acceleration directly toward the Krex fleet's rear guard. Instead of slowing to engage at normal combat distance, the human ships kept accelerating. Their reinforced prows were aimed directly at enemy vessels. "They're going to ram us," a Krex officer shouted in disbelief. The human destroyers opened fire with every weapon they had while closing to ramming distance. Their armor was designed to survive impacts with space debris and violent atmospheric storms. Krek's energy weapons scored deep grooves in their hulls but failed to stop their charge. At the last moment, the human ships fired their maneuvering thrusters and slid past the Krek's vessels, their hulls scraping against enemy shields and armor. The close-range weapons fire devastated the Krek's ships while the humans suffered only surface damage to their thick armor plating. More human ships struck from different directions. They came out of asteroid fields, emerged from behind space debris, and approached from angles that conventional tactics said were impossible to defend. Each attack group used different methods, but all shared the same aggressive philosophy: get close and hit hard. Captain Lee brought Inchan's pride directly through the center of the Krek's formation. The massive assault carrier's armor was scarred by dozens of energy hits, but her structure held firm. As she passed between two Krek's battleships, her launch bays opened and released clouds of boarding pods. The boarding pods were small, armored, capsules designed to punch through enemy hulls and deliver Marines directly into hostile ships. Most galactic species considered boarding actions to be primitive and barbaric. Civilized warfare was supposed to be conducted at a distance with minimal personal risk. Major Song's pod slammed into the side of a Krek's cruiser with an impact that would have killed most alien species. The human Marines inside were strapped into crash harnesses designed for Earth's violent weather and high-gravity conditions. They barely noticed the collision that cracked the enemy ship's hull. Scout Kim Jisoo had moved her small ship to an observation position where she could coordinate intelligence for the fleet. She watched in amazement as human tactics completely disrupted the Krek's formation. The enemy ships were trying to maintain their defensive sphere while responding to attacks from every direction simultaneously. "Admiral," Jisoo reported over the communication system, "the enemy is breaking formation. They're trying to pursue our attack groups, but they can't maintain unit cohesion." Admiral Park nodded from his command chair. "Understood, Scout. All ships press the attack. Show them what Deathworlders do when someone threatens innocent people." The term Deathworlders was what other galactic species called humans behind their backs. Earth was classified as one of the most dangerous planets in known space, with violent weather, aggressive native life, and gravity that was considered excessive by most species. The idea was that only the most savage and primitive creatures could evolve on such a hostile world. What the galaxy had not understood was that surviving on a death world created a species with capabilities that peaceful evolution could never match. Human reflexes were faster, their endurance greater, and their tolerance for violence far beyond what civilized species could comprehend. Commander Choi watched the tactical display as human boarding pods attached themselves to 17 different Krek ships. "Sir, all boarding teams report successful penetration of enemy hulls. Marines are advancing into target vessels." General Vextar felt his command ship shudder as human boarding pods latched onto his hull. He had never experienced this kind of warfare before. The humans were not trying to destroy his fleet from a safe distance. They were coming aboard to take his ships by force. "Seal all bulkheads," he ordered his crew. "Activate internal defenses. These primitives will learn what happens when they face Krek soldiers in close combat." Major Song's Marines had cut through 3 bulkheads and were advancing toward the Krek's cruiser's bridge when they encountered the first enemy soldiers. The Kreks were tall, strong, and armed with advanced energy weapons. They should have been able to stop the human boarding party without difficulty, but the Kreks had evolved on a low-gravity world with gentle weather and abundant resources. They were excellent soldiers according to galactic standards. Sergeant Yoon Ji-hoon kicked down the twisted remains of a bulkhead door and led his squad deeper into the Krek's flagship Death's Edge. The corridors were filled with smoke and the acrid smell of burned electronics. Emergency lights cast red shadows on the walls as the human Marines advanced toward their target. Yoon had been fighting in zero-gravity and hostile environments since he joined the Marines 8 years ago. His squad moved through the damaged ship sections with the fluid grace of predators who had spent their lives adapting to dangerous conditions. While other galactic species needed special equipment and extensive training to operate in damaged spacecraft, humans simply treated it as another hostile environment to overcome. The Krek soldiers they encountered were brave and well-trained by galactic standards. They took defensive positions behind cover and fired their energy weapons with discipline and accuracy. but they had never faced an enemy that could take multiple hits and keep advancing, or soldiers who seemed to feel no fear when charging through weapons fire that should have been lethal. Corporal Nam Soyan moved behind her squad with a medical pack slung across her shoulder. She was the team medic, but she carried an assault rifle like every other Marine. In the past 20 minutes, she had treated 3 wounded humans and saved the lives of 2 Villani civilians they had found trapped in a collapsed section of the ship. The Villani prisoners had been brought aboard the Krex flagship for interrogation. Most galactic species would have been helpless in the ship's hostile environment, but Nam discovered that humans and Villani had similar enough biology that her medical supplies could treat both species. She worked quickly to stabilize the aliens' injuries while her squad provided security. "Sergeant," Nam called out as she finished bandaging a young Villani's broken arm. "These civilians say the Krex command center is 3 levels up from here. They were taken there for questioning before the attack started." Yoon nodded and checked his ammunition. His squad had been fighting for over an hour and had covered more than half the distance to the ship's bridge. The Krex resistance was getting stronger as they approached the command areas, but the human Marines adapted to each new challenge with the flexibility that came from evolving on a world where adaptation meant survival. Tech specialist Kang Min Seok had hacked into the ship's computer system using methods that violated every principle of civilized cyber warfare. While other species approached computer security with elegant algorithms and sophisticated programming, humans used what they called brute force attacks, overwhelming system defenses with raw computational power and aggressive tactics that civilized programmers considered crude. "I'm into their main database," Kang reported through his helmet communication system. "Sergeant, this is bigger than we thought. The Krex have invasion plans for 12 different systems. They're not just taking this one colony, they're planning to enslave everything in this sector." The information that Kang extracted from the Krex computers revealed the true scope of the enemy operation. The invasion of the Villani colony was just the first step in a campaign that would affect billions of innocent civilians across dozens of peaceful worlds. The Krex Empire had been planning this expansion for years, while the Galactic Alliance debated trade regulations and diplomatic protocols. General Vextar stood in his command center and watched the tactical displays with growing horror. His fleet was being destroyed by an enemy that refused to follow the rules of civilized warfare. Human ships continued their aggressive attacks while his vessels struggled to respond to tactics they had never encountered before. The boarding actions were the worst part. Vextar had studied military history and knew that boarding enemy ships was considered a primitive tactic used only by the most barbaric species. Civilized military forces fought at a distance with minimal personal contact. The idea of armed soldiers storming through ship corridors was something from the galaxy's violent past, but the human Marines were not just boarding his ships, they were capturing them. His tactical officer reported that 7 Krex vessels had been completely taken over by human forces. The Marines moved through damaged sections that should have been impossible to navigate, fought in conditions that should have been lethal, and showed a level of physical endurance that defied explanation. "General," his communication officer reported with panic in his voice, "the humans have breached the command deck of the Savage Wind. Captain Mortak is requesting permission to surrender his vessel." Vextar's 4 eyes widened in shock. Captain Mortak was one of the most experienced officers in the Krex fleet. His ship carried 300 soldiers and was equipped with the latest defensive systems. The idea that a small group of human Marines could capture such a vessel seemed impossible. Major Song Hana led the assault on the Krex heavy cruiser Iron Claw with a team of 30 Marines. The ship's corridors were designed for tall Krex soldiers, and the gravity was set lower than Earth standard. This should have given the defenders a significant advantage, but human adaptability turned the alien environment into just another challenge to overcome. The Marines moved through the ship using tactics learned from urban warfare on Earth. They advanced in small groups, used cover effectively, and coordinated their attacks with precision timing. When they encountered heavy resistance, they simply found alternate routes through ventilation systems and maintenance shafts that the Krex had never expected anyone to use. "This is Major Song to all boarding teams," she announced over the tactical network. We've secured the engineering section of the Iron Claw. Their power systems are offline and their weapons are disabled. Moving toward the bridge now. The human boarding actions were succeeding because they approached warfare from a completely different perspective than other galactic species. While civilized races fought to minimize casualties and preserve valuable equipment, humans fought to win. They were willing to take risks that other species considered suicidal and push themselves beyond limits that other species considered impossible. Scout Kim Jisoo monitored the battle from her position near the planet's moon and provided intelligence updates to the fleet. Her sensors showed that the Krex formation had completely collapsed. Enemy ships were scattered across the orbital space around Kepler 442c, many of them showing signs of internal fighting as human marines battled for control. Admiral Park, Jisoo reported, I'm detecting massive explosions on the planet's surface. It looks like the Krex ground forces are destroying their equipment rather than let it fall into our hands. Admiral Park reviewed the tactical situation from his command chair. The space battle was nearly won, but thousands of Villani civilians were still trapped in detention camps on the planet's surface. The Krex ground commanders might decide to kill their prisoners rather than allow them to be rescued. All boarding teams, this is Admiral Park, he announced over the fleet communication system. Priority target is now enemy command and control. We need to capture their senior officers and get access to their ground operation plans. Sergeant Yoon's squad had finally reached the approach to the Krex flagship's command center. The corridors here were wider and better defended, with automated weapon systems and energy barriers blocking their advance. But human military doctrine emphasized that every defense could be overcome with enough determination and creative thinking. Yoon studied the enemy positions through his rifle scope and developed a plan that would have horrified any civilized military strategist. Instead of trying to disable the defensive systems through technical methods, he decided to simply overwhelm them with direct assault. Nam, set charges on that bulkhead, he ordered his medic. Kang, can you overload their power systems when we breach? Tech specialist Kang was already working on the ship's electrical systems through his portable computer interface. The Krex had excellent security protocols, but they were designed to stop sophisticated cyber attacks, not the kind of brute force intrusion that humans preferred. I can give you about 30 seconds of system disruption, Kang reported. After that, their backup systems will come online and will be facing full defensive capability. Corporal Nam finished setting the explosive charges and moved back to a safe distance. The shape charges were designed to blast through ship bulkheads without causing catastrophic decompression. Human engineers had developed them after years of experience fighting in the dangerous environments around Earth's orbital stations. Ready for breach, Nam reported. Yoon counted down from 5 and triggered the explosive charges. The bulkhead disappeared in a flash of light and debris, creating a hole large enough for his squad to charge through. The human Marines rushed into the command center with weapons firing, moving with the speed and coordination that came from training in Earth's most hostile environments. General Vextar found himself face to face with a human soldier who was shorter than most Krex, but moved with deadly efficiency. Sergeant Yoon kept his rifle aimed at the general's chest while his squad secured the rest of the command center. The human's eyes showed a level of determination that the Krex commander had never seen before. General Vextar, Yoon said in accented, but clear galactic standard, you are now a prisoner of the human defense fleet. Order your... Dr. Lim Yunbi stood in the medical bay of the captured Krex flagship Death's Edge and studied the psychological profiles of the enemy prisoners. As the human defense fleet's chief xenobiologist, she was fascinated by the way different species responded to stress and combat. The Krex officers showed signs of deep trauma that went beyond simple military defeat. They keep asking how we did it, Dr. Lim reported to Admiral Park over the communication system. General Vextar specifically wants to understand how human soldiers can function in conditions that disable most other species. I think they're beginning to realize that Earth's classification as a death world gives us advantages they never considered. Admiral Park reviewed the intelligence reports from the captured Krex database, while his fleet established orbit around Kepler 442c. The information they had recovered painted a disturbing picture of galactic politics and military preparedness. The Krex Empire had been planning their expansion for years, carefully selecting targets that the Galactic Alliance would not defend. Captain Huang Kyungmin worked with a team of intelligence specialists to analyze the enemy operational plans. Huang had spent 5 years studying galactic military doctrine and understood how most species approached warfare. What he found in the Krex database revealed systematic weaknesses in the way civilized species defended themselves. "Sir," Captain Huang reported to the Admiral, "the Krex have detailed files on Alliance response patterns. They know exactly how long it takes for peacekeeping forces to organize and deploy. They've timed their operations to be completed before any effective response can be mounted." The captured intelligence showed that the Krex Empire viewed the Galactic Alliance as weak and predictable. Alliance military forces followed strict protocols that emphasized diplomatic solutions and minimal casualties. While these approaches worked well for disputes between civilized species, they were completely inadequate when facing an enemy committed to total conquest. Ambassador Xin Wujin arrived with the human relief fleet 6 hours after the battle ended. Xin was a career diplomat who had spent years trying to improve humanity's standing in galactic politics. He had never been comfortable with his species' reputation for violence, but the rescue of the Villani colony was forcing him to reconsider many of his assumptions. "Admiral," Ambassador Xin said as he toured the captured enemy ships, "the Alliance is demanding a full explanation for our actions here. Director Veltar is claiming that we violated galactic law by attacking the Krex without proper authorization." Admiral Park showed the ambassador through the detention camps, where Krex forces had been preparing to process Villani civilians for slave labor. The evidence of planned atrocities was overwhelming, but Park knew that Alliance bureaucrats would focus on procedural violations rather than moral necessities. "Mr. Ambassador," Park said quietly, "when I took my oath as an officer, I swore to protect innocent life wherever I found it threatened. I don't remember anything in that oath about getting permission from officials who are too scared to act themselves." The relief fleet brought supplies and personnel to help with the massive humanitarian operation on the planet's surface. Human engineers began repairing damaged Villani infrastructure with the speed and efficiency that came from experience dealing with natural disasters on Earth. Where other species would have spent weeks planning reconstruction efforts, humans simply started building. Elder Talvin met with human aid coordinators and was amazed by their approach to disaster relief. Commander Ohayejin, who led the engineering teams, explained that humans had developed rapid response capabilities because their homeworld regularly experienced catastrophic weather events that could destroy entire cities in hours. "On Earth," Commander O told the Elder, "we learned that speed matters more than perfection when people are suffering. We can make temporary repairs now and improve them later when everyone is safe and fed." The Villani had never experienced this kind of practical efficiency. Most galactic species approached reconstruction as a carefully planned process that could take months or years to complete. The humans had basic shelters erected and power restored within days of their arrival. Dr. Lim continued her interviews with captured Krex officers and began to understand why human military success had shocked them so completely. The Krex had studied every major military power in the galaxy and developed tactics specifically designed to counter known strategies. But humans fought in ways that violated every assumption about civilized warfare. "General Vextar keeps talking about our impossible endurance levels," Dr. Lim reported to Admiral Park. "He says his soldiers were trained to fight for standard galactic combat durations. When human Marines kept fighting effectively after taking damage that should have disabled them, it created panic in the Krex ranks." The psychological impact of facing Deathworlders in combat was something that no galactic military had prepared for. Most species evolved on worlds with gentle environments and abundant resources. Their soldiers were brave and well-trained, but they had never faced enemies who treated extreme adversity as normal conditions. Captain Huang made a disturbing discovery while analyzing Krex expansion plans. The enemy had identified 17 different systems with peaceful populations that could be conquered before Alliance forces could respond. The attack on the Villani colony was just the first step in a campaign that would enslave millions of civilians. "Admiral," Huang reported urgently, "the Krex have 3 more fleets positioned to attack colonies in the Centauri sector. The largest Target is the Andorian trade hub with over 12 billion civilians. Their attack is scheduled to begin in 72 hours. Admiral Park studied the tactical information and realized that the human defense fleet was facing a choice that would define humanity's role in galactic affairs. The Alliance would never authorize military action to prevent the Krex attacks. Their response would come too late to save the targeted populations. Ambassador Shin reviewed the intelligence reports and understood the political implications of any human military action. If Admiral Park's fleet intervened to stop the Krex expansion, it would establish humanity as an independent military power that acted without Alliance approval. The diplomatic consequences would be enormous. Admiral, Shin said carefully, if we launch preemptive strikes against Krex staging areas, we'll be committing humanity to a path that separates us from Alliance authority. We'll be saying that we don't need their permission to protect innocent life. Admiral Park looked out at the Volani colony where human aid workers were helping rebuild homes and schools. The results of human intervention were visible everywhere. Families reunited, communities restored, and hope replacing despair. The contrast with Alliance inaction was impossible to ignore. Mr. Ambassador, Park replied, I'd rather explain our actions to angry bureaucrats than explain our inaction to dead civilians. Scout Kim Jisoo had been monitoring Krex communication networks and detected military movements in 3 different systems. The enemy fleets were moving toward their targets. With the confidence of predators who had never faced effective resistance, they expected their attacks to succeed as easily as previous conquests. Admiral, Jisoo reported, the Krex fleets are moving faster than expected. They must have detected our success here and decided to accelerate their timeline. The first attack will hit the mining colony at Kepler 186F in 48 hours. Dr. Lim completed her analysis of Krex psychological profiles and presented her findings to the fleet command staff. Her research revealed fundamental differences between how Deathworld species and peaceful world species approached conflict and survival. The Krex evolved on a world with mild weather, low gravity, and abundant resources, Dr. Lim explained. Their military doctrine assumes that all species share similar limitations. They literally cannot understand how humans can function effectively in conditions that would disable their soldiers. The doctor's research showed that human advantages went far beyond physical endurance. Deathworld evolution had created a species with superior pattern recognition, faster decision-making under stress, and an instinctive understanding of predator-prey dynamics that gave them tactical advantages in any conflict situation. What we call courage, Dr. Lim continued, they interpret as insanity. What we call determination, they see as impossible endurance. They're not just losing battles, they're losing their entire understanding of what warfare means. Commander O finished her preliminary assessment of Volani reconstruction needs and reported that the colony could be fully restored within 6 months. Her teams had already established temporary infrastructure that provided basic services to all surviving civilians. The Volani were overwhelmed by human generosity and efficiency. Elder Thialvin spoke with Ambassador Shin about the long-term implications of human intervention. The Elder had lived through 3 decades of Alliance protection that had never provided anything more than bureaucratic promises and diplomatic protests when threats emerged. Your people saved us when no one else would act, Thialvin said with deep gratitude. The Alliance sent messages saying help was coming, but your Admiral Park sent ships that actually arrived. There is a difference between promises and action that my people will never forget. Admiral Park made his final decision while standing on the bridge of the captured Krex flag fleet. Admiral Bai Jinhuan received Admiral Park's urgent transmission while reviewing defense preparations at Luna Station. The message contained captured Krex intelligence about planned attacks on 17 different systems, including detailed tactical assessments and timeline estimates. Bai had commanded human military forces for over 30 years and understood immediately that this intelligence represented both a crisis and an opportunity. Admiral Park has done excellent work, Bai told his staff officers, but stopping this Krex expansion will require more than one battle group. Signal all available fleets to rendezvous at staging point Tango 7. We're going to settle this matter permanently. The human defense fleet's main battle force consisted of over 200 warships supported by specialized vessels for logistics, intelligence, and humanitarian operations. While the fleet was smaller than those maintained by major galactic powers, human ships were built for extended operations in hostile environments and crewed by personnel trained to fight under conditions that would disable most other species. Colonel Park Seojin led the special operations forces that would be crucial to stopping the Krek's expansion. Her teams were trained for missions that Alliance military doctrine considered impossible: deep penetration raids on heavily defended targets, sabotage operations in extreme environments, and direct action against enemy leadership in their most secure locations. The Kreks have staging bases in 6 different systems, Colonel Park briefed her unit commanders. Their fleets are dispersed to prevent exactly the kind of coordinated attack we're planning. We'll need to hit all their major installations simultaneously to prevent them from regrouping and continuing their expansion. Commander Oh Hyejin had been transferred from reconstruction duties to command the experimental stealth ship Ghostwind. The vessel incorporated human advances in sensor-defeating technology that had been developed for operations in Earth's dangerous asteroid fields and radiation zones. Alliance scientists had dismissed human stealth research as crude, but it proved remarkably effective against Krek's detection systems. The Krek's empire had been expanding through the galaxy for over 2 centuries, using a proven strategy of overwhelming force followed by systematic enslavement of conquered populations. Their military commanders were experienced professionals who understood conventional warfare and had adapted their tactics to counter every known defense strategy employed by civilized species. What they had never faced was an enemy that treated warfare as a survival challenge rather than a political exercise. Admiral Park's battle group arrived at the Kepler 186F mining colony, just as advance elements of the Krek's invasion fleet entered the system. The human ships immediately deployed in the aggressive formation that had proven so effective at the Villani colony. Instead of establishing defensive positions and requesting negotiations, they charged directly toward the enemy fleet. Supreme Commander Torvak of the Krek's Empire commanded the invasion force from his flagship Eternal Conquest. He had studied the reports from General Vextar about the unexpected human intervention at Kepler 442c, but he refused to believe that primitive Deathworlders could pose a serious threat to disciplined military forces. 47 ships against our fleet of 300, Torvak told his officers. The humans may have succeeded against Vextar through surprise, but we are prepared for their crude tactics. The space battle that followed proved that human military capabilities went far beyond what any galactic power had imagined. Admiral Park's ships fought with the same aggressive efficiency they had shown in their previous engagement. But now, they coordinated their attacks with supporting elements from Fleet Admiral Bay's main force. Human fighters emerged from asteroid fields where they had been hiding for hours, their pilots using skills learned from navigating Earth's dangerous orbital debris zones. The small craft attacked with suicidal aggression that confused Krek's defensive systems designed to counter civilized fighter tactics. Colonel Park's Special Forces teams had infiltrated the system days before the main battle and were already sabotaging Krek's logistics installations. They moved through hostile environments using equipment designed for Earth's most extreme conditions, accomplishing missions that Alliance Special Forces would have considered impossible. Commander O brought Ghostwind through the Krek's fleet's defensive perimeter using stealth technology that made her ship nearly invisible to enemy sensors. The vessel appeared directly behind the enemy flagship, just as the space battle reached its climax. Supreme Commander Torvak, O announced over an open communication channel. You have 30 seconds to surrender your fleet, or we will demonstrate why humans are considered the galaxy's most dangerous species. The Krek's commander looked at his tactical displays and realized that his fleet was being systematically destroyed by an enemy that refused to follow any known rules of engagement. Human ships rammed enemy vessels, boarded hostile craft under impossible conditions, and continued fighting even when heavily damaged. Impossible, Torvak whispered as he watched human marines capture another of his cruisers. How can primitive species accomplish such things? The answer was broadcast across the galaxy as news networks reported on humanity's second major military victory against the Krek's empire. Dr. Lim Yunbi, had prepared a comprehensive analysis of Deathworld evolution and its effects on human military capability. Humans evolved on a planet that tried to kill them every single day, Dr. Lim explained to galactic media representatives. They developed reflexes, endurance, and survival instincts that peaceful evolution could never produce. When they fight, they're not just using military training. They're using millions of years of adaptation to the most hostile environment in known space. The psychological impact of fighting Deathworlders was evident in every Krek's prisoner interrogation. Enemy officers described human soldiers who seemed immune to pain, who continued fighting with injuries that should have been incapacitating, and who showed tactical creativity that defied all military logic. Fleet Admiral Bay coordinated simultaneous attacks on all 6 Krek staging bases, using intelligence provided by captured enemy databases. The operations required precise timing and flawless execution under conditions that would challenge even the most experienced military forces. All task force commanders, this is Admiral Bay, he announced over the fleet communication network. Execute Operation Deathworld in 30 seconds. Show the galaxy what humans do when civilized species won't protect innocent life. The coordinated assault began at exactly the same moment across 6 different star systems. Human fleets struck Krek's installations with overwhelming force while special operations teams sabotaged critical infrastructure and captured key personnel. The attacks were completed before Alliance officials even finished debating whether to authorize a diplomatic protest. Colonel Park's commandos infiltrated the main Krek's command facility on their industrial world of HFY. The planet's hostile environment would have killed most galactic species within hours, but the human soldiers treated it as just another challenging deployment location. Target secured, Colonel Park reported as her teams captured the Krek Supreme Military Council. All enemy strategic reserves have been neutralized. Their expansion capability is completely destroyed. The final phase of Operation Deathworld occurred when Supreme Commander Torvak attempted to rally surviving Krek's forces for a last desperate counterattack. He gathered over 400 ships from scattered reserve fleets and positioned them for a massive assault on human colonies. Admiral Park's battle group met the enemy fleet in open space between star systems. The engagement lasted 6 hours and resulted in the complete destruction of Krek's military power. When the battle ended, Torvak's flagship was the only enemy vessel still capable of movement. Supreme Commander, Admiral Park announced over an open communication channel, you have lost your empire, your fleets, and your ability to threaten innocent civilians. I offer you the same choice you gave the Vallani: surrender or be destroyed. Torvak looked around his damaged command center and realized that his military career was over. The Krek's empire's expansion had been stopped by a species that the galaxy had dismissed as primitive barbarians. His surrender would be broadcast across known space as proof that Deathworlders had become the galaxy's dominant military power. I surrender, Torvak said quietly. I surrender my fleet, my forces, and myself to human authority. The news of Krek's surrender reached the Galactic Alliance just as Director Veltar was preparing another diplomatic protest about unauthorized human military actions. The Alliance Council found itself facing a new political reality, where humanity had become an independent military power capable of protecting peaceful species more effectively than their own peacekeeping forces. Elder Thalvin spoke for billions of grateful civilians across the galaxy when he addressed the Alliance Council. The humans saved us when you would not act. They protected us when you sent only words. We know who our real defenders are. Ambassador Shin Woo-jin stood before the Galactic Council and delivered humanity's new position on galactic affairs. We didn't ask for your permission to save innocent lives, and we won't ask for your approval.